Hello everyone and welcome to episode 1 of Snaf2's Grim Tales podcast. My name is Fabian and I'm joined here today by Benji Fox.
Hello, I'm Benji Fox.
Longtime Snaf2 community member, Bird of Terror.
Terror here.
The man, the myth, the legend, the original writer of Grim Tales himself.
Hello everybody, I'm Griddles.
As well as the home dog Minnie.
What's up?
And Zircon.
Salutations.
So page 1, I guess we should just do what we normally do and then just kind of give our thoughts as to how we ended up at Grim Tales in the first place.
I can shed some insight, but I'm happy to hear you guys talk about it first.
So, I think I mentioned earlier that this art style, it's so interesting to see in contrast with what we see now.
Yeah, the art style change is definitely one of the most polarizing things. I personally loved the old art styles from both of the comics.
I'll be honest, I forget that this was this looked like. So when I go back from the new pages to this, it's really jarring, honestly.
It's like it's not even the same comic.
No, exactly. It looks like it's a different.
It's kind of interesting to note that I can only assume Griddles had to come up with a story as to why these characters ended up the way they were. Because when Bleedman got the rights to use these characters, these aren't actually Bleedman's characters. You had to explain why she looks like a zombie, but he's a full-blown skeleton with one eye. So
this page existed prior to me joining the team in 2005. I was in my mid-teens when I started on chapter 5 or 6 of PPGD, the one with Mandark versus Dexter. That was literally my first foray into editing. I found this whole website through a Digimon fan site, believe it or not. And then, sure enough, when he put out the call for a new editor, I submitted my version, and that's how I got the job. When I did that, this page was already out. This page was by itself on its own little tab on what was then the Snaf2 website. So the characters, the talking style for Mini Mandy, all that actually preceded my time with the production. The talking style, I can only imagine, comes from this Dead Doll person.
Dead Doll Double Zero?
Yeah, who created the characters originally. I've reached out to that person before, never heard from them, so I can only assume that they've left the art stuff behind. I do know that Mini Mandy in that version, I think, was a skeleton and not a zombie with one eye, so I think there might have been some slight tweaks, but for probably about 2.5 years, this page just sat by itself. There wasn't that much interest in it at the time because PPGD was quite popular, obviously, and there were lots of other active comics on Snaf2 at the time that were done by different people.
Like Tin and Sticky Floors and,
Yeah, and Snaf2 itself. So, this kind of just sat there for a while, and then the decision was made after putting PPGD on hold to give this some life. So this page is kind of an anomaly.
Is that why the art style jumps between this page and the next page?
That's exactly right. There's a lot of time between this page and page number 2. You'll see that this style matches very, very early chapters PPGD with the massive feet, the massive eyes, the style of the eyes, with the color but no irises. With no pupils. Yeah. So this and also the I think the other thing that kind of turned people off was that the color palette was not bright and lively like PPGD was. It was definitely a different comic.
There's definitely a lot of winters here.
And another thing I want to draw everyone's attention to is if you scroll right up to the top, you'll see that this is done under the guise of something called Full Bleed Productions, which I doubt you'll ever see again because that was, I think, a little placeholder for when Bleed was still working in a professional setting for a production company in the Philippines with other artists.
Yeah, I do recall a long time ago, the only time he could ever host his comics and stuff was when he was at work.
Yeah, that's right. He did another comic that eventually developed somewhat into Sugar Bits using the character Ginger. He did that alongside a couple of other artists with his professional setting, and I believe he might have used Full Bleed Productions as the title for that. But in later years, when he moved into being his own artist, primarily commission-driven, he changed that name to Blood Sugar Studios, which I believe is still what he uses today, certainly in his email address. But yes, the decision to have Mini Mandy talk like a Shakespearean wannabe was not my choice initially, but it was later decided that we might as well carry on with it and see how well we can make it work, because that way at least
she's already doing it.
Yeah, And I believe that was initially this Dead Doll Double Zero's idea.
Yeah, like it makes sense. And along with like the obvious juxtaposition of Junior speaking nothing like that, we needed to create explanations for both of these things.
That's right. Well, no new story comes without the need to do a hell of a lot of explaining.
That's true.
Yeah, I like how you ended up creating like entire characters in the Underworld just to explain her accent.
Well, I mean, I think that what we eventually came up with made sort of sense. As some people may know, that it's now no longer a factor in her character, which is a bit of a shame because a lot went into sort of making it possible. But I think that as far as setting her up to be something that you hadn't seen in another Bleed comic before was reasonably successful. I'm very glad that her really wonky Jinx from Teen Titans hairstyle didn't survive much longer than this page, though. That was one part that kind of jarred me.
Yeah, I always thought this hair kind of weird, but
It's like her mother's, but on overdrive. The other thing too is, unfortunately, we won't get many timestamps for these pages because a lot of them existed prior to the transfer over to the current hosting website. So I won't be able to tell you exactly when a lot of these came up, but I think after about page 3 or 4, we're talking mid to late 2006.
So there's just no metadata attached to the pages.
no, not right now because the metadata it would be for when they rehosted it, not when they hosted it the first time. This is a different website.
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
we would need to use the Wayback Machine again to get the date. Necropollums. And her weird ass sleeve hands.
I actually
A lot of people wondered for a while if she actually had genuine fingers or if she just had these weird, curly Nightmare Before Christmas looking things.
Not to mention the fact that her legs are about 3 times as big as her torso, but go on.
That's just the art style. Look back at early PPGD and you'll see much the same. You'll also see that Junior doesn't have pants. He's just got one long skirt-looking thing in this page.
That's what I've always noticed.
You cannot be killed.
Oh my gosh, I never noticed that. That's weird. You can't see that
He's
now.
got his dad's long robe.
I mean, I wouldn't actually be against it.
Yeah, it's not bad design.
I think Bleedman just forgot to put a line there.
I think you're correct. But no, page 2, and we're already seeing one of the most agreed upon problems with GT is text walls. Like they're not too much of a problem at first, but they definitely become one later.
I love how the flowers just never show up anywhere else in the comic. Like they're not even referenced. They're not even like in the background. They're just nothing.
No, that wasn't always going to be the case, but
I would like a little bouquet of necropollins to be in Minnie's room or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like show consistency within a world, I guess. You know what I mean?
my knowledge of Spawn back in this time was very limited, so I know a lot more about it since then. That being said, I hope this was actually sort of still seemed reasonably consistent with everything.
It did. I mean, it fits with the already inconsistent nature of Bleed comics.
Yeah, fair enough. I noticed that Mini Mandy hasn't had those curly shoulder pad things ever again.
Like, what even are those supposed to be? It's like a cape that got ripped off and frayed and then got sprayed with hairspray.
It's like a poncho come to life.
A poncho that doesn't cover anything?
It kind of reminds me of the fins on Jack Skellington's suit coat.
Well, that's kind of important
That's
later on.
actually a good thing because it even has those little curls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, consistent. Also, how the fuck does this thing sneak up on them
So
exactly?
you'll see the art style's beginning to slightly change now.
Also, I loved how this guy always looked like that big ass bottom jaw. It's like, yeah.
Oh yes, all the Flebiacs have rather gargantuan proportions. I can never quite get all of their names and appearances correct, though. Violator's the most popular one, I suppose you call it, due to the movie.
And it says but low inside they monstrous visage. Is that supposed to be thy?
Yes.
Noted. But before any of that, this is already when Nurgle has. I mean, when he has those overpowered Nurgle powers, right? And he's still
Spoilers.
just. Oh, right. Yeah, whatever. But he already just got flicked by this demon.
And it's not the last time that he'll be taken apart.
Wait. Dumb question. Where did this scythe come from?
Where do you think?
He pulled it out of his ass.
It's possible, but I mean, have we ever seen this scythe since then? Like this exact scythe?
This page and much of it would suffer from what the tropers would call early installment weirdness.
Moving to the next page.
We were still trying to put everything together this time. Yeah, here we go. We bring along one character who I regret has never appeared again.
Spawn.
Who I'm sure had a fantastic reason for being in this story, but
Hey man, like Bleedman comics are like the Smash Bros of web comics, but now like he really should have had like more of a staying point. Like his universe keeps recurring. It's just I don't know, Spawn himself doesn't seem to have much staying power within the comic.
yes, well, I figure that he's got some background that would make for an excellent prequel comic should anyone decide to do one.
How far a prequel are we talking?
Probably prior to the two being born. This is
So-
likely to be the first encounter these kids have had with their Spawn, but Spawn would be familiar with certain members of the family.
I
Because
feel like
Spawn was a mercenary, an assassin, a special operative agent, and I think someone else in their family went into a similar line of work during their earlier years. This is the first time I've seen a lot of these in a little while, and you'll notice that we've spoken about this before. Bleedman is in his triple exclamation mark phase.
Yeah, mine with exclamation points. Yeah.
Mm. I've been clear with him about how I don't feel that adds nearly as much emphasis as he thinks, but it's a habit he later breaks.
That's good.
And here we go. Now this is definitely early to mid 2006.
Yeah, we start getting into the meat and potatoes of GT. Yeah, it says 3 days ago, but like while after dying and being stitched back up, Mini Mandy ended up growing taller for some reason.
That or her posture improved. And then we get our first look at the Queen.
Yes, Queen.
Eyes are very far apart in that last bit for some reason.
According to grids, the zombie body was supposed to be for her teenage years, so it's probably
Well, the body is designed to be replaced over time, I suppose you could say.
Question: wouldn't Minnie be dead right now because of the touch of death?
Oh, I'd say it's selective.
Selective death touch.
Yeah, sure. They're not in the mortal realm either. Perhaps death does not come so easy.
I mean, it could be argued that most of these realms of death have their own laws of death. So yeah, maybe once you like leave your own jurisdiction, you're not death anymore.
Also, I've got to say that Mandy looks genuinely better in these early designs of her. Less manly.
Manly? Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I would use that to describe her, but
She certainly doesn't look nearly as harsh.
here's a riddle for you all. Is it possible to translate a song into text, and if so, will it be any good?
the same thing every review of this webcomic says.
Can I make a quick confession? I left this up to him because I've actually to this day still not seen that movie in its entirety.
How can you not watch The Nightmare Before Christmas? Yeah, like this comic caused some people to watch it.
I suppose it
Because
depends
we
on how
have to-
readily you could access certain things. I mean, I'm sure like Disney Plus and whatnot these days.
You don't
make
need
it-
Disney Plus. There's a free app you can get, like if you have a Windows computer.
Yeah, I'm
Fuck
pretty
yeah.
sure in 2006 there weren't such things as apps.
No, but there was such thing as getting and watching the fucking Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah. I don't know, that involved money. I wasn't even getting paid for this. If I was getting paid, I'd use that money to go buy the Nightmare Before Christmas. I suppose the alternative is you can go play Kingdom Hearts and get a an introduction to it from that.
There's also, like, while being visually impressive and leaking novelty, I guess, also makes this one of the least enjoyable pages to actually read. It's definitely a good page to look at, and I guess if it could make noise, go along with. But, like, to read it, like, you already know it.
It's just a bunch of visual cues. Also, I was always amused because, especially since Minnie didn't talk too much in these early, like, human versions of herself, I was very amused by how her hands would just disappear.
I always found it very cute. Like, she could only possibly be crossing her arms under that to make them disappear like this.
Mm.
So she's always walking around like she's fucking cold or something.
That's adorable.
She's got no pants on, so that could be a thing. I don't know. I just thought it was a funny little design choice. I had no issue with it.
She just kind of seems like she's going along with it the whole time.
She's made of stern stuff.
She's made of Mandy. Some pretty fucking stern stuff.
Also, we're not going to address the fact that Jack only has 3 fingers versus everyone else's 4. It's just part of the design.
I mean, yeah, I believe that actually is from it.
Yeah. So one can assume that whatever Jack was prior to becoming a skeleton, he wasn't a typical human being because he doesn't have the fingers.
I mean, there's plenty of Frankenstein monsters in this universe alone. Like, Sally herself is made out of several people.
Oh, for sure. But Jack is a straight-up skeleton, so we can assume that perhaps he came from the Simpsons universe.
Yeah. And of course, whenever Minnie talks, it's like, I mean, it's not as bad as I'm making it out, but it kind of is word soup sometimes.
I don't know. I had fun composing that. It's not meant to be like direct Shakespeare as opposed to just Old English. And since we later find out who her tutor was, that sort of over-the-top expressiveness, it kind of fits the bill.
Yeah, I love that you ended up choosing spoilers for Helga.
Yes, well, basically the explanation was like literally one page, but it served its purpose. It would have been nice to see her come back to some degree and find out what other human characters were out there. Maybe we still will. Comic's not over. 14 years later, and it's still not over. I can't help but wonder what these pages would look like with the current art style, where there's a lot better depth and color blending.
I probably wouldn't go for the punch bowl, and that guy's drinking something that isn't in the punch bowl.
There's probably bar service.
Yeah, probably, but I still wouldn't go for a punch bowl, not in this place. Yeah, it's crazy.
Huh.
Like after the first couple of pages, it's like this happened 3 days ago, and then we go back to 3 days ago, and then later we're gonna go into a book and then go back years ago, and then we're gonna keep going back and keep going back,
Mm.
and only then do we start coming back up with the explanations.
Also, notice that Junior's drinking milk for bone juice and calcium.
Yes, bone juice, good skeleton. This also sets up Junior to be a pretty unlikable piece of shit. He's a baby, scared of
Oh,
Jack,
sure.
and is now kind of vengeful because she is dancing.
Anyone who's listening to us and is themselves an older sibling, and when they were younger, they often felt that the younger sibling took a lot of attention away from themselves. I'm sure there's some people who felt that way in the past.
It would also
Hashtag
help.
relatable.
It would also help that the irony of him being born a skeleton is that he's even not as special for being a skeleton anymore. She's more special being a full-blooded human, half-blooded human.
Because she stands out.
That she stands out by being a normal fucking human. Isn't that weird?
It's like how Mandy stands out over her husband. The unlikableness continues.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the character early on. We're like not supposed to like him, and to an extent, he's also not supposed to like himself.
Well, I think a consistent thing that we started going with Junior was character development, right? First one, he's an unlikable brat. Something happens that forces him to man the hell up, and he gets given a responsibility he's not truly ready for. But then, even then, he has difficulty to an almost destructive degree, but he then learns to adapt to his new situation and have fresh perspective. And then it sort of happens again later on in What About Mimi, where he develops even further and takes new steps that he had never taken before. Whether that remains consistent after that point, we'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah, like I'm probably not going to remember this once we reach that point, but like the character development, it reaches its apex with the conclusion of the first arc, but then it goes in reverse. Like the characters literally become each other, and the problems don't go away, even though we've literally resolved them. Then Minnie trips the fucker.
With Sparks. It was around about this time when the readers were speculating what Minnie's special abilities were.
I mean, I don't even think that's like a fair question to ask because neither of them have really shown off any special abilities yet. I mean, even in the first couple of pages where he was in his quote unquote Nurgle form, he still got his ass kicked with a single finger flick.
Mm-hmm. By a giant hell monster. Yes. I'd also like to point out that Mandy, just from that bottom page alone, despite the fact that she's generally meant to be considered one of the most evil beings in the underworld, still has this parental instinct of wanting to see her children grow and prosper together.
Yeah, like she was holding Junior like just a couple of pages ago after you got spooked.
That's right. I think that that aspect of her is something that needs to be occasionally reminded of, because otherwise people would just assume that she's terrible. I also remember getting a lot of complaints about how her hand looked, because it looked as though she had an extra finger. But I'm like, no, that's actually her pointer finger holding the handle of the teacup, and her thumb's just curled over. But a lot of people thought it looked like she had an extra finger and she was holding it with her middle finger.
Huh.
I remember that.
I guess I
from
can
the
see
forums.
it, but it seems like a really dumb thing to point out.
Yeah, the forums had some dumb discussions, especially when there was a while between pages.
Kinda wish I got to see the forums back in the day.
Yeah, they were an interesting place. Lots of good people.
Lots of not good people too.
Well, eventually, but that we're talking, like I said, early 2007, late 2008, 2006 rather, and at that stage the forums were quite a lively place with good sorts for the most part.
Yeah, I think I ended up joining around like 2009 or some shit. So like Dave had already left. I think you had already left too.
No, I was still in the forums in 09.
I find it really fucking weird that you and I never talked for how long we were both apparently there. Man, what a bad neighborhood. Steps out of the party for 5 goddamn minutes, gets kidnapped.
Can't have shit in Pumpkin Town.
I love how like no matter where you go, you're always gonna see that fucking hill. Curly ass. boot hill thing.
It looks like Oogie Boogie.
Yeah, it does kind of look like at the top of his hack head, doesn't it? I kind of always felt like it was like an upside down, one of those little curly elf shoe things. Because, you know, like they always end in that little curl for some reason.
I have a feeling he played a lot of Kingdom Hearts to get this aesthetic.
And I think he gets kidnapped, but then like they give him cookies and shit.
I think Shock's hair would have been so annoying for him to draw.
Yeah.
Looks like Medusa looking ass.
Medusa
Maduka.
noodles.
And
like
the
a
green
strung
kid
out-
looks like a Beast Boy.
If you're reading his lines in Beast Boy's voice, that's totally understandable. That thing with Junior going out of here, considering you don't normally see his nose, you can either look at that as either his nostrils that rarely ever show up, or two tiny beady little eyes.
It kind of looks like a shuckle.
It does look like Shuckle eyes, you're right.
Meanwhile, let's move on. There's like a dynamite over there for some reason. I'm sure that'll be fun. And then the gag from, you know, Nightmare Before Christmas, like the cookies with teeth. It's just straight up biting his finger.
Mm.
And, you know, they have their priorities set. They got the cookies, the milk, the dynamite.
Junior has to always have milk for bone strength, and he's always carrying the family album on him for some reason.
I mean, if you have no, like, your chest cavity is just another purse, man. You can put anything in there.
He's a walking loot box.
And considering how much he falls into pieces, like all you need to do is hit him really hard and you get everything.
Like
Goddamn pinata.
Sonic bursting all those rings.
The pose.
Dynamic
pose.
Mandy. I think that pose has been replicated many times elsewhere.
It's a good one.
hmm And we clearly know that she's got a reputation around the underworld for better or worse.
It's the underworld, so I'm assuming worse.
Oh no, Barrel seemed to think she was quite a looker.
Wouldn't most people?
We're getting towards the fun stuff now, boys and girls. The stuff that really sort of helped it, for better or worse, emerge from PPGD's shadow.
We're almost at 9/11.
Yeah, we're continuing. Like this is the first, well, actually, technically, like the second of many great flashbacks. Like this is now a flashback within a flashback. I want you to pay
It's like
attention.
Inception of flashbacks. I get it.
To anyone who hasn't actually read GT and for some reason watching whatever we're doing here, like if you pay attention, this is now a flashback within a flashback. Moving along. I always liked this first picture. It kind of like goes over the entire cartoon, shows them in their original art, and then shows them in the bleed art.
Mm.
Yeah, it was actually pretty nice.
Looking back on this, I wish I could have done Grimm's. I suppose it doesn't matter because he was writing it, but Grimm's accent via the words. Something I did a little bit more consistency later on.
And all the side characters.
Yeah, some of which you may still see later on.
Oh look, Nurgle tentacles.
Nurgle, Hoss, Jeff, Harry Potter? I don't
Again,
remember.
Mindy?
Yeah, look, it was
Are you talking about Nigel Planter? He was their Harry Potter ripoff.
Super
though.
Billy!
Seems kind of weird in hindsight that Mindy never shows up in the comic after this point.
I'm pretty sure Mandy, after ascending to Queen Bitch of the Underworld, probably skinned her alive.
I'd like to think that this sequence alone sets up so much prequel material should you ever want to do a dedicated comic on a character who's only tangentially related to the main plot. You might want to, get some further information about them. I'm not sure what you call that, but it'd be a good...
Orientation?
I'm not sure. But there's certainly stuff there to make a good, compelling story out of it. Compared to, I don't know, it'd be silly to just do something of a character that no one cares about or even considered as part of the comic. I don't know. Yes, word soup exposition wasn't my strong suit back then. I apologize. There'll be a few pages where there's lots of text, but I'd like to think that we had enough decent, colourful pictures around it to pages.
Honestly, when I was reading this page, I was fascinated by what you were saying.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of lore to be had there, but it's not everyone's cup of tea to just see a whole bunch of text.
I feel like if you're already like invested in the story, a wall of text like this is no longer a bad thing. Like you want all the information. Yeah, like especially with like Graham and like how he was talking about the world, his deal, like this dark, malevolent energy he felt from Andy. I remember the feeling I got when I was first reading this. It was actually very captivating.
Yeah, it
funny
was.
enough, when I started reading this, like I just kept going. It was actually really good.
Yeah, I binged all of Green Tales in one sitting.
I'm glad that people found it enjoyable.
Even when this comic was new to me, the one thing that I didn't like doing was going over Nurgle Senior's walls of text.
I remember
Really?
a certain person who later started helping out as Bleedman's color assistant would tell me in no uncertain terms that he thought it was the worst thing I'd ever done in the comic.
Which one?
Which part?
The Nurgle walls of text.
Yeah, because like when Nurgle speaks, like there's nothing interesting going on in the background. It's just words in what is normally a completely black space. Like even like this shit is interesting. Like you can see, just demons joking, him coming to terms being their friend, and then his like dark ambitions with this fucking crazy ass little girl.
Mandy is like Bleedman's ultimate protagonist.
Yeah, it's funny how there can be a shit ton of OCs, and yet Mandy is still the leader of everything she's in.
She's got charisma way beyond 10.
Wasn't that the point of her even being in the show? Like, it didn't matter who was in the show, Mandy was always the one in charge.
I kind of feel like there were a couple characters that could consistently best her. Like, I think like a good 50-50 would probably be Eris. Like, Eris kind of ended up using her a lot. And then there was also Nurgle himself. Like, I don't think you ever actually beat Nurgle. Like, you only ever satisfied him.
Nurgle was almost like the Q of Billy and Mandy.
Yeah, even Mandy couldn't outsmart him. It ended up, I don't remember exactly. I think it was Billy that actually ended up like stopping Nurgle from being a threat.
I like the Shadow.
I do like the Shadow.
And Billy would later go on to have more interesting background hijinks in later episodes of PPGD.
Spoon. There is no spoon. Fucking Matrix reference. LOL.
Yeah, that was one of his more harmless throw-it-in lines. Of course, I think by the time this page came out, The Matrix was about 7 years old.
Hey, you can still make jokes about it.
Yeah, it's not the most outdated reference he's ever made. Also, Spawn reference again.
Pool party.
Obligatory beach episode.
We need a modern day GT Beach episode.
Yes, Mandy showed up in a swimsuit in GT before she showed up in One Indian Powerpuff Girls.
She's all like, why am I not dead yet?
Sure to ruin the mood at parties.
And this coloring is a lot different than early pages for sure.
Yeah.
Sure, it was a conscious decision.
The softer outline, no hard black line. At least on the left-hand side panel there, you'll see that most of the stuff is drawn without harsh, thick
you're
black
right.
outlines.
There's like a very thin border between the colors. Almost kind of looks saturated.
I want to say this was around when, because this
I
art's
think
very. Because this
It
art's
came to
very.
his peak between about 09, around about 08 to 10, perhaps.
Maybe I was gonna say because this art is just very pleasant to look at. You know what I mean? I don't know. There's a difference between it and stuff now, if that makes sense.
There's a lot of visual play going on,
Do not anger me, child.
but there's some connection points. You'll see that there's the picture of Bubbles and Mandy on the fridge.
I didn't even notice that.
There's a reference to Teen Titans being cancelled.
Rip.
And this was a decision that he decided to put in there. And he's like, we're making this happen. And I just need you to make it look as best as you can. I'm like, okay, what's this? And then he showed me the page. I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's like, this is how we're ending the chapter. And I'm like, okay then.
Yeah, I think it's pretty
like that.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, she's already worked out that nothing's going to happen to her. And she's just doing it over the top and dramatically, which is, fine.
Mandy
But
being such
a lot of people who from the forums and whatnot saw this page. I mean, I'm sure there'd be even some comments under this page right now, years later. People are like, "Oh, what the hell?"
Doesn't seem out of character for Mandy.
Maybe reception over time has improved. I just remember there was a fair bit of backlash to this back when it first came out, due to perhaps what some would call sensitive themes. But there would be a page not long after this that blew this one out of the water. So
Yeah. But no, I think maybe like during the time, like this could be a little like unpleasant if you were to click on the comic and then it would show you the most latest page and then you would just go,
Yeah.
boom. Like this would be the first thing you would see.
That'd be pretty cool, actually.
All I'm thinking now is like you see a preview of the new page, and this is in the preview, and you're just like, what the hell?
I'd be like, damn, this comic's pretty metal. I'm gonna check it out.
Hey, that's end of chapter 1. We said we were going to chapter 2, right?
yeah, well, you'll see that was actually a relatively short chapter compared to what we get later on.
Story
Compared to our
by
talking.
Heather M. Solomon. I
That
didn't know your
name
name
again.
was Heather.
No, Heather Solomon was, I think, the dead doll. No, hang on.
Yeah, I'm not seeing very much grids here. Did he just straight up not credit you during this time, or did you not come on board during this time? No, you were definitely
Oh,
here. You were
I
not
was
doing
here.
it. But like he also says story twice, so
Heather Solomon. The name rings a bell, but it was so long ago. I think it was to do somewhat with events playing out, but I can't remember.
I just find it really weird that they would credit this literal random who and then not you.
Yeah, where are
Yeah.
you?
Where the fuck are you in the credits, Gridley? Your
That's a
story's
good
not
question.
adding up. You start beating your ass.
I think he's lying. I don't think he's the real Crittles.
He never wrote for GT. We've been lied to.
I think Bleedman just didn't credit him.
Meanwhile, Boogie be creeping in the corner.
Gee, I wonder what he's doing there in that corner.
I just wanted to also point out that the full bleed thing is no longer there.
By the way, I love the way Billy's hourglass is designed.
Yeah. In that same panel, I also really like her face. Like she's trying to be angry, but she's too interested.
Oh,
Credit number-
that's right. Okay, so
if I know
Heather
your name-
Solomon. Heather Solomon is actually a DeviantArt user named Sonic Rose.
Why does that sound familiar?
Well, her most recent work on DeviantArt, if you look at her stuff, is Undertale based, but I think she might have had a hand in sort of influencing some of his ideas for the early flashbacks. A lot of what he did for the flashback portion was what he presented as his own stuff for me to course correct. Maybe then she's responsible for one of the upcoming pages. Who knows? But my work on these earlier flashbacks was less so than when we returned to quote unquote present day, and in that case, still 3 days prior to where we started off from.
Yeah, the present day is still a flashback.
I think the stuff with the hourglass and Mandy's immortality and recklessness, definitely the part about the scythe living the day as the Grim Reaper coming up, I believe that was influenced by this Sonic Rose person, but she does not have any future input into the comic.
Yeah, I'm not
so
sure how many people here have actually watched all of Billy and Mandy, but that part where Mandy was Reaper for a day was actually an episode.
Well, I think it's referring back to it and integrating it into the comic.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm thinking the implication here is that during that episode, she fucking caused 9/11.
She wasn't Reaper for a day. Billy was.
They didn't. They were both Reaper for a day, weren't they?
No, I don't. I don't think that.
No, it
happened
was
in the
only
actual show.
Billy, but here they do it as Mandy.
I guess maybe they just do another day off.
And see, the thing is too with the first page, he can't go back and retroactively correct who he credits. So there's actually stuff that occurs later on in the story that's based on an artist. This part here, where she changes her outfit, brings her hair down, talks about grabbing the scythe. That's actually based off a guy on DeviantArt called J Dan S, who had quite a cute art style in a comic called Bearer of the Scythe, where she wore this black dress and this hair down hairstyle. It was basically like a slightly aged up version of Mandy from the comic, from the show rather. But he doesn't get a credit, even though visually and thematically he's being referenced quite heavily at this point.
Also, I love the picture of Piff.
Yeah.
But the reflection in the mirror, I was very happy with how that turned out. Not so happy so much about who she decides to display on her wall, but
Hitler.
at this point in time, Bleed was quite vocal about the fact that okay, this is a touchy subject. He said that he liked Nazi aesthetic, not so much Nazi
That
ideology.
reminds me of a really weird aspect one of my very first girlfriends ever said. She like hated Nazis, but she had this weird quirk. She's like, she likes the sound that their boots make when they walk.
Like, I'll admit, there's this one picture floating around of Mimi, who we've not met yet, in a SS officer's outfit, and he's like, "I love how she turned out." I'm like, "Yes, Schutzstaffel Mimi," but he's like, "Oh, I like how they dress. I don't like what they preach."
What about what they do?
He picked out a lot of the visual cues here. So that in the bottom left page, that cross with the medical snake and the wings on it, if there's a reference to that, I'm actually not quite sure what that one is. And there's a thing on her desk that looks like it could either be a model of the school. It's a computer screen, I think, with DeviantArt open, actually. But from the distance, I always used to think it was a Connect 4 set. Just because I didn't look at it too heavily for ages. But that's old school DeviantArt on that computer screen. Mandy must have
like what looks like an iMac or something.
Yeah. Talk about dating your work.
Shit. It's actually like I never like only when we slow down and talk about every square inch of these comics do we actually notice some of this shit.
Also, if you want to get super technical, Grim is dressed like a lot of those Japanese waifus.
You know, with no actual clothes
An
underneath
open
the
backed apron and no other clothes on.
Yeah, but he ain't got much ass to show off.
No, there'd be no clapping today. Not until she gets older. All right, here comes some more references. And including the reference to Satan, who would have remained consistent later on should certain things have played out.
Now we have South Park Satan.
Yeah.
I
would
just
imagine
wondered,
that,
isn't that the angel? Isn't that the angel from Johnny Bravo?
I actually don't recall. He definitely looks like he's from something.
I think he's from Johnny Bravo. I
That's
don't
a big
remember.
nose. You'll notice also that the dude at the stand here in the center panel is based on then Pope Benedict XVI.
And here's a part that I don't think a lot of people ever fully retain. A lot of people are still asking what happened to Billy, and when I say he was put in purgatory, they don't really seem to accept that as an answer, even though this is literally what happened.
Well, he
Like-
appears to be friends with Satan, so if Satan turns up in some future thing, perhaps he might as well.
Yeah, he ended up getting kicked out of heaven and kicked out of hell, and I think Grimm just put him in purgatory.
In a professional business sense, he's what's known as a free agent.
What, Satan or Billy?
Billy.
Is that grass? That grass literally looks like it's from. Oh, well, not really. I was gonna say
Hey,
it looks like it's from
don't you
the.
know that purgatory is based on
window-
Windows 7?
I was gonna say the Windows XP image.
They're running over the desktop.
Don't go into the recycling bin, you won't come out.
I will say I always liked when the show did it as a joke because I think the shows did it before when Grimm's robe would split into 2 legs.
Yeah, there was also some times when he would have to run away really fast. He would like pull up his robe like a dress, and he'd like run with his little bony little feet.
Yeah, that was always funny stuff. I'll be honest, I kind of prefer the way Purgatory looks in something like Supernatural, where it's like this foggy but disorienting forest of nothingness.
It would be nice if Grim Tales could explore that someday.
I'd like to.
Also, I wasn't ever sure that Mandy had like an outright aversion to Irwin. Like just more like a casual cold disdain, but like here it looks like she's legitimately trying to kill him. Exploited Irwin for a while until it was his time. I wonder who caused it.
So we find out.
Well,
Which means that based on this, she exploited him for a long time.
I was gonna say, well, going off of what we know,
Yeah, going off of
Yeah.
what we know about Mandy and exploiting people. Wouldn't be surprised if blank usurped power in the neighborhood. Here we fucking go.
Yep. There's Gaz. There's Olga.
so this is the
There's
page.
the
This
aesthetic.
is the replace page. There's another version that has Nurgle Jr. and Spurg on it.
Really?
Yeah.
I've seen it on the wiki before, which is weird because I don't know why all 5 of them couldn't be on it.
Yeah, they got Yogi, they got Boo Boo, they got Dora, Diego, and they got a Spoopy Boopy.
And then of course Hector can kind of he's like, I'm not supposed to be in this stupid comic.
I can't remember if this was an April Fool's page or not now.
I don't think it was. I think it's
This
canon.
page is mainly just for cameos. If you scroll down, there's further cameos at the bottom.
And that's what happened to fucking Coop after PPGD.
Wait,
given how
who's
many-
that in the trench coat?
Trench coat. What trench coat? Oh, that's definitely X and Bell.
Oh, I didn't even notice Bill.
You know, I'll be honest though.
And
Realistically,
is that Danny Fenton in the?
Needed a part-time job, man.
I'll be honest
Yeah.
though. The lore normally says that people can challenge the Grim Reaper to a game. I feel like if Coop challenged the Grim Reaper to a game, if it was far enough in his wheelhouse, he'd probably win. Like if it was a video game, he'd probably win.
I think
Yeah,
the
it's-
whole riddle about beating the Grim Reaper requires you to cheat.
Yeah.
Or
Like
this, or Final Destination happens basically.
But no, with Mandy being aged up by what is it, like 1 or 2 years older? Like let's just say like 2, just for the sake of brevity. Like this could be said to be like right after PPGD, like an assumption that things have gone well.
Well, it's interesting because I remember how upset BR got with me after we later established the connection, like much later established the connection between the universes, even though this happened right here. And Mandy is clearly, I don't know if you want to say older, but clearly different to how she's depicted in PPGD as a result of some sort of character growth.
PPGD. It doesn't matter how much post, but it is post.
It is post. Not to mention Coop is apparently about to die, and he's, as far as I know, not dead in the other one. So
No, he's not.
Well-
Like
Well, then that raises the question: who's piloting Megasid? Like, as we see later on in the comic.
Dexter uploaded the DDAI, so she now exists permanently as a massive monster truck-headed robot.
love it.
Fitting.
You know, with what we see in the Powerpuff Girls comic, I would not be shocked if that was true. Oh yeah, Grids. This perfectly explains what you said. You have normal Mandy, then you have slightly older Mandy. So this would be post.
Yeah, post PPGD.
Yeah,
Exactly. We're a couple of pages away from that page, but I think this page set up a lot of intrigue at the time. There is so much that could be explored in this phase of her life, even as the late teen in the middle there with the white shirt. And then on the right-hand side, her outfit and aesthetic is quite similar to a certain other mercenary we may have recently bumped into. I feel like there's a lot of stuff she could have accomplished in that period of her life that would set up future plot points with her as the queen.
Sort of already assumed like this Mandy and that Mandy were kind of the same level, but like Mayor by day is Hitman by night sort of thing.
And
Well-
she's just wearing extensions.
I don't fucking know.
well, you could probably argue the one in the middle there was like when she started running for mayor. like a campaign for it, and
I'd
then
say she would have started as
then-
class president,
and
gone
then-
up into like local
and then
council.
and then long hair is in her term already.
Like if you're gonna do a future story on PPGD,
do
you can
something
actually
to
use
get
this
power.
as a company.
No, it's that.
Between
I never
this
know-
and other stuff going on roughly, no, I'd say in the intervening years after Mandy marries Grimm, spoilers, there's so much prequel material to hold the interest of the fans. So
Like
the
point-
choice to do something that's completely irrelevant to all of this is kind of baffling considering everything that's just there ready to be explored. There's so much there. I like also how she's got pristine pink fingernails despite her down and dirty job.
Yeah, that's sort of
As
also
it
why I
says.
assumed they were both the same person. Like they both have the fingernails.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Pink is not
Um,
rosy.
I
No,
always imagined short
I
hair,
swear she
older
she
one
must
is
have
like
just-
college age or something.
Makes
Mm.
sense.
Nah, that could work. At some point, we can tell she just stopped cutting her hair.
But why did she lose the flower? Got kid flower, older kid flower, no flower. Where's the flower?
Flowers
she's
grow
in a
old and
uniform.
die. Evil lives forever.
She better have a fucking necropollen.
It was supposed to have been established, but it should at least be referenced at some point as the queen of the underworld that Mandy still has an affinity for flowers. Flowers are kind of the excuse reason for why the whole plot kicked off in the first place on the first 3 pages. But
Well,
that's
necropollen,
from the
like,
kids.
no matter what happens, no matter how crazy and fucked up the world becomes, they still like flowers.
I never noticed in the next panel. There's a screen cap right from the pilot.
He's a
Shape-
resourceful fella. That author.
I think I actually had to look this up like right afterwards. I was like, "Who the hell is Joe Black?" Like,
Pseudonym for the
I
Grim
had
Reaper.
I had no idea it was a reference to a movie.
Like when he
so-
is putting on a pseudonym of this random blonde guy, does he still have a Jamaican accent?
I was literally about to ask that. I can't tell in his text.
Yeah,
'cause his
right when he's
face.
about to rip his fucking face off, he goes into Jamaican. But like, is he Jamaican there?
That would
And then
explain
he
how.
goes full Gandalf the Black.
10 seconds to make up your mind before I kill you.
Now that looks like a badass picture of Grimm.
I wonder why he didn't keep this style.
I mean, like, Grimm needed to do this. He needed to remember that he was the one in control. Kept giving it to Mandy, but like at this point, like especially with the 3 dots, there's no more contradiction. Like she knows, like, oh fuck, he remembered. He's actually the one keeping me alive.
I find
Yeah.
that the instances where Mandy is genuinely put on the back foot, even for the slightest moment, are pretty good moments.
I like that
Really?
you can see her body through her hair.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
always been a thing.
I like when animes do that.
And here we go.
Like this is all during the 10 seconds of her thinking, apparently.
Is that
You can almost add like the little harp bling, 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 as she fades into the flashback again.
what's her name from Puffy Amiyumi in the billboard?
Also, no
I
fucking
never
idea.
watched that
It
show.
looks like someone who was drawn by Bleedman.
I do like that in the top panel. Grimm is like literally sharpening his scythe.
Ready to cut
Like,
that bitch.
He is totally in the moment. You know what I mean?
He's like, God damn it, sometimes I fucking love my job.
You know, you have to wonder actually, realistically, if Mandy was an assassin, she's probably been shot like several times.
Oh, no question.
Like you gotta
That's
wonder. Like,
probably what allowed her to do the job without fear or favor, was because
well,
that
no. What I was gonna say was, you think Grimm was just like doing his job, reaping souls? You know, he could just tell. Oh, well, just revived herself again. Do
Gotta put
something
more
with that.
sand here, more sand there. It's like,
Yeah,
you know, I'm
exactly.
reading these guys, but not you. It's kind of unfair to the whole continuity.
her name just comes up on his list repeatedly. He's like, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that.
It's just paperwork at this time. It's like he has like a fucking whole pile he has to deal with her name on it.
No, just like pipes it directly into a paper shredder.
Motherfucking Operation Freedom.
Mandy is George Bush confirmed.
You know,
Hey,
it's
look,
kind of
it's a couple towers with
it's
X's
kinda
on them.
weird
Are
that there's-
those planes?
Planes and towers.
Yeah, I honestly 100% gotta admit, did not notice that the Grim Reaper was in Hitler's audience right there.
Oh shit! Yeah, I was
It's even
about
harder
to
to
say that.
spot in the
Grim
Titanic.
Reaper's on the bottom one too. Matter
Where
of
is
fact,
he on
he's
the
even
Titanic?
doing the peace
I
sign.
think he's in the foreground in the ocean there.
He's in the ocean. Like, is that him? I mean, that does kind of look like a skull. I can scroll in even further.
Oh yeah, that looks like a boat. I think that's legitimately him in like a rowboat right there.
She's been thinking so long that he's had time to sharpen the blade.
And you like cut the times like 2, 2.5, 2 1/3. And then he gets impatient. He actually
He-
fucking switched. Like she was about to die.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
smoke after
like,
She
reaping?
doesn't even give a fuck. She's just like, I do.
she cut it very close. I like that silhouette in the last panel though.
You do know I hate kids, right, Grim?
She hates kids, yet does that mean that the whole eugenics thing was Grimm's idea?
I don't know. You'd think she'd be fairly right wing, but she's obviously pro-choice to some degree.
Did Grimm like walk up to Dark Danny and say, "Hey, fuck my wife"?
Considering
No,
how he
but
felt
did
about Nurgle doing that later on, I'd say that she probably is independent in who she chooses to cohabit with.
Meanwhile, fucking Oogie's still over there creeping. Still, he's like, I'm just gonna wait until they're done telling the story.
The time taken to tell this story is a lot less than the time it took to do and upload all these pages.
Then, of course, hubba hubba.
Junior's basically carrying around a porno mag in his pocket.
I
I'm not
love you,
actually sure when we established that her eyes eventually went red.
Maybe once the bonds of mortality were officially severed.
Yo, why do her toenails look like that?
This is after he'd gone out of the massive feet phase and more into pointy toe phase.
Like, it almost looks like she has a fucking hoof.
It does, I know, it does.
Let's not look at the fucking foot. Let's look at like the cleavage. How about that?
Yeah, he often struggled with female anatomy, but Mandy was probably his best source of practice. So if we can ignore the foot and like maybe appreciate the legs.
But it has a hoof. Moving on.
We'll ignore the fact
stop
that it ends in a hoof.
I like her sandals.
Official
Who the
room
fuck
at a
is this
hospital.
phase guy?
Who the wait,
Whore.
Wait,
Why is
hold on.
Mandy a whore? Why did they make Mandy a whore? Why is she a whore? Whore.
You'll notice he posted all those within like a couple of minutes of each other. It's fantastic.
what's on those pages on the bed?
Brochure. I think they're in Hawaii right now.
I wouldn't be surprised that thing that she's reading there is some sort. It looks almost like an X-ray of the female
What is that?
reproductive system.
It looks like an anime character. Like, I don't know who it is though. I can
Oh,
see
you're
like
right.
one of them
It does look
sitting
like
and one of them's like bending over.
Is it porn? If you can go in any further.
I won't get any more resolution from doing it.
This is the part where I tell them that when you put your head upside down it looks like a girl riding a guy in the cowgirl position.
Wait, really? Like, there's another guy in there?
It's a Kama
Oh
Sutra.
shit! It is.
Is it a Kama Sutra with anime
Oh,
girls?
shit, yeah. Now that I put my head upside down, it's totally her bone.
Oh
is like a-
wow, yeah, that's
Wow.
weird. Can we show
But
this?
in a
Can we
green
even
bikini
post
or
this on,
something.
can we even post this on YouTube now?
Oh no, we've been demonetized.
More wholesome
Oogie's
territory.
still there, by the way.
Oh, here's the page I hate.
Hey, all this is taken.
This confirms that Junior's dad is probably Timmy Turner.
Also, what the fuck is that hair?
That was
Forever.
actually the first instance of a Nurgle as like a visual thing appearing in the whole comic, so naturally it's going to be a bit weird.
It looks so stupid.
It's
You
like
know,
if
he-
Johnny Bravo decided to go all Lovecraftian.
If Johnny Bravo got like infested with spawn or something.
It looks like Josuke if his hair was his stand.
Oogie's still there. Moving on. Fucking straight up using Soul Calibur up here. Like, that's not even just a reference to Soul Calibur. He is literally wielding Soul Calibur.
This does not even look like a Nurgle.
Bottom half does, kind of.
I think this is
Yeah.
what happens when a Nurgle goes even further beyond.
It looks kind of weird when you look at his armor. Like, what is that thing going down between his legs?
It's like a tabard or something. Bottom part
It's
of a tabard.
armor for the most important weapon in his arsenal.
The fact that it doesn't match the rest of his armor is a bit off-putting. You're correct.
God, like, even that it's slightly rounded and also pointed upward. Like, what the fuck?
Can we move to the next page, please?
Sure. But, like, I don't remember this page existing. I'm just gonna say that out loud. I
I've-
don't remember anything about this.
Probably overshadowed by a lot of other more important pages later on.
Fucking
Yeah.
crazy. Like, is this what happens when you master your Nurgle? And then we move on to, once again, Junior being an absolute cock.
There's
Like-
a lot of unreliable narration going on.
Yeah,
Like
why?
he's painting a skewed picture of his sister. I think the symbiote paints a skewed picture of Mini Mandy later on as well. She turned my world into a living hell. Your world is a living hell.
I like how Helga is like only one other time brought up, and then like that's it. It's as if that was just dropped.
I didn't even know who Lenore was when I first started reading this.
Me neither.
Neither did I. This led me to looking that up.
Indeed, indeed.
Those costumes strongly remind me of Zim.
Zim?
Well,
Zim.
Jonan Vasquez. His name's even mentioned behind
I
him.
don't know why, but this picture reminds me of Identity V.
Yeah, massive bulging eyes, visible stitches.
Yeah.
That's the Jonan Vasquez way. But you'll see, like, even with his warped perspective of things, like all the pictures are of Mini Mandy in the hallways.
Well,
It's his like subconscious manifestation of how he believes she's getting the unfair attention,
Oh, I
What?
never actually considered the fact that he could just be misremembering some things.
What is that
or
picture?
deliberately playing it up.
What was
What
that?
is that? What is that picture of Grim and Mandy in the background there, right behind him?
That's from that
Sure.
dead doll person.
Yeah, that's from
Oof.
Bone Mini Mandy,
That-
the
that's-
really dumb picture. But that's a nice reference, though.
That one in the very far background, I think, might be by J. Dan S., the author I mentioned before with the black skirt, Mandy and the Bearer of the Scythe. I think that's his art style.
Moving downwards.
As soon as they find out he doesn't have what they want, they're like, ah, screw you.
Oh yes, chapter 3.
Wait, is this
Hmm.
chapter 3? Was that the end of chapter 2? Did we end chapter 2 without me knowing?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure this is chapter 3 right here.
Go up to the top.
Grim
I'm
Tales
not
Swingdown.
sure if it was done that way.
This could just be like a fun little narrative device using the crow from Grim
And then
Adventures
doing a title drop.
I feel like the crow would have been a good narrative device if they kept marking
We
one of the
didn't switch to
chapters.
Fred Fredberger later on.
What is this? Is this more fan art?
Actually, yeah, you'll find that end of chapter 2 comes up in about 6 more pages. Not before a rather important reveal about a certain character. So, yeah, there's another 5 or so pages, and then chapter 2 is over. And again, unfortunately, triple exclamation mark syndrome.
What's wrong with triple
Ooh,
exclamation
ooh.
point syndrome?
It's it's pointless. As someone who's done a lot of writing stuff, if you add exclamation marks, it actually detracts emphasis, and it's just a bad habit.
No, I know. I already knew that.
The
That's
Raven
why-
is telling us the story, and looks like this is the first time I've actually seen her hands poke out of the cloak without like moving them out on purpose.
Yeah, and then the next panel they disappear again.
It must be really easy to draw her silhouette. Just draw like a person and then draw a triangle.
She looks like a heartless in that one with the silhouette, especially when it's set in this area.
Oh yeah.
There's little floating bell-shaped heartless. Here lies Emily. May she forever rest in pieces.
Is that a reference or something?
It should have been Squidward's hopes and dreams.
Squidward's hopes
Well,
and
this was
dreams.
2006, don't forget, so I'm not sure if that was... I suppose it was. Here we are.
I wonder if this is like Wolverine and like they can do it, but it hurts like hell and they just get used to it.
That would make sense if that was the case.
It'd be one hell of a fucking puberty.
I remember reception to this page was very strong.
The page itself is very strong.
Oh hey, look,
Yeah.
there's Bleed's logo.
Oh shit.
Vince in the
Bleed is
go.
dead.
You'll remember from our discussion a little while ago about various ancient
Yeah.
entities coming into conflict with each other. That despite Minnie eventually, as we know, passing on her powers to someone else, she still retains a connection by virtue of her blood right. So don't rule her out just because she goes through a few changes later on. And yeah, everyone liked this frolicky sort of thing. Adds a bit of dynamism.
Like the Nurgle, meanwhile, is just kind of like along for the ride. It's like, what the fuck we doing?
My only gripe is that her left wing changes because in that center bit, it's literally a copy paste. Whereas on the right hand side, you'll see that it's got like a mouth and eyes in different places, and it's kind
I
of.
mean, they can asymmetrically morph into shit.
I suppose so. Minnie better be careful though, because if she gets too close to bats, she could catch a virus that can spread to people.
She
You'll
could
see
then-
as well that her poncho has disappeared and become these wings.
How could I have seen this a million times? But like, she saw the poncho shoulders though.
Well, we know that the Nurgle actually helps create clothing for people, so the poncho sort of reappears in that one sequence with Zero, but it's sort of tattered as if to say it's not like fully reformed. And she goes back to using her wings instantly later. I, for one, wasn't all that fond of the Fred Fredberger inclusion, but you know, whatever.
He
Oh
just
yeah,
keeps
I
running.
remember reading this, and I liked Fred Fredberger there. I read it in his voice.
Yes.
Clearly, Fred is
Yes.
the best character. Your story about the moose with the glowy nose is so touching. Lovely.
As one of his little spider minions salivates all over it.
He's just like, what are they even going to do to him? Like, like
Brand.
he's a skeleton. It's like, oh, I'm gonna pop your fucking head off. He's like, that happens all the time. Like, what?
Yeah, anything larger than me is enough to knock me apart. Hell, falling into a punch bowl.
Hell, like I once tripped over and I couldn't find my fucking left hand for a week. It was crawling around on the floor. People thought I was trying to imitate the Addams Family.
Cause I'm the Oogie Boogie Man. Although those dice are incorrect. You know why?
Why is that?
That top dice is incorrect. All opposite sides of a dice always add up to the number 7. Fun fact, listeners: grab a dice, any side of a 6-sided dice like that one. Look at them and then flip it around to the other side. Count the number on the back. It'll always add up to 7, which is why that dice at the top there is not a fair dice. But then again, that's Oogie Boogie.
Yeah, he doesn't gamble. He cheats. What
It's
the
like, what?
pound at dollar and percent?
Yeah, why couldn't he just say it out?
Lay not a hand upon mine brother, or thou shalt pay with a price most dear. Grr. People be like, oh my god, Minnie Mandy is so awesome. Nothing bad's ever gonna happen to her.
I forgot how cool this character was before she met an unfortunate end.
He met an
well-
unfortunate end twice.
Well, that's it. I've said it before. She's the only character in the comics to have been killed twice.
It's really unfortunate.
One as a character and one as a narrative construct.
To your process writing this, when chapter 2 ended, what were you as a person doing at this point?
But we were launching straight into the next one. This was at a time when PPGD was on a hiatus, and we were looking at getting Sugar Bits up and running again. This was
Hiatus,
before,
like the
I was
Atomic
actually
Betty
I was the only writer at the time. BR hadn't joined the team yet.
So it was the Atomic Betty hiatus.
Yeah. PPGD didn't come back until late 2007, I believe, and this was still 06. We were churning through the pages pretty quickly. He used to have an upload schedule that he'd do one page every day on a Sunday, and there was
So
one.
what page
I remember on his DA, there would always be one dude. It was the guy who came up with the Dark Star Council. He
Kane
would
Sword.
appear. Yes, he would always post on a Sunday. If it wasn't like spot on midnight on the Sunday, he would always go, "Where are the new pages?" ? Without